Joining me now to discuss this is Joseph Williams. He's a former senior editor at U.S. News and World Report. Joseph, let's start with this attack on Pelosi. Came on Friday, the same day a 22-year-old Pennsylvania man pled guilty to threatening to kill Congressman Eric Swalwell. It also came during the same week where we saw the Arizona Attorney General's office burglarized, and 3 men were convicted of plotting to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. What are these threats of violence and this violent attack tell us about where the state of affairs are here in the United States?
It tells us that people are angry, and it's interesting that in all of these incidents that you cited, the break-in in Arizona, the attacking of Paul Pelosi, the convictions of men in Michigan for trying to kidnap and theoretically assault the governor, it's been deafening silence from the right. A lot of these attacks, now mind you, there have been some attacks from the left on politicians from the right, but very few, and it's highly disproportionate, and condemnation of that violence has been non-existent on the right. So it tells us that the electorate is very angry. It tells us that emotions are high. It tells us that this election is going to be consequential in more than one way, depending on the outcome.
And we're also seeing a lot of tension on Pennsylvania, as Benji pointed out. You had President Biden there, Vice President Harris stumping there. The former President Trump is also going to Pennsylvania. Stakes very, very high there in that state. It's a tight race. What can you tell us about it?
Well, what we can say is that John Fetterman is holding steady. Mehmet Oz has been getting a lot of support from Republicans. The cash has been pouring in on the right to help shore him up. He's been doing a lot of small events, while contrastly, and you would think this might be the opposite, but the guy with the speech impediment, the temporary speech impediment from a stroke, is actually doing more public events than the seasoned television professional who may have made a near-fatal abortion gaffe during their last debate. That race is seen clearly as a bellwether. Who takes Pennsylvania? As goes Pennsylvania, so goes the rest of the nation, and so goes the Senate. I think that Fetterman will hang on. It'll be by his fingernails. It'll be an incredibly tight race. We've been here before, but Oz has struggled to overcome charges of elitism. He's struggled to overcome charges that he's a carpetbagger. It's been really, really difficult for him to get authenticity. However, the stumbles that Fetterman had and the 2.5 months he had off the trail recovering from the stroke has hurt him. He was cruising over the summertime. Now things have gotten much tighter. This is not unexpected in most races, but it is kind of striking given the dynamics here where you have a television pro going against the working class hero, and both have much, much at stake depending on the outcome.
In a tight race in Georgia as well, a very important state, the Democratic Party leaning on former President Barack Obama to make a campaign stop. What does he do in terms of energizing Democrats to get out and vote?
Well, that's another election where the stakes, all the chips for both parties have been pushed to the middle of the table. When you have Barack Obama coming out of semi-retirement, I guess you could call it, to hit the stump for a candidate who is very narrow in the polls, that says that he's attempting to energize Democratic voters. Particularly, there's been a lot of talk in Georgia about black male voters not really getting to the polls, about them having a lot of disinterest in this race, when the stakes, again, and we've repeated this, we're probably going to repeat it a lot more between now and Election Day, the stakes could not be higher. It's striking to me as well that Herschel Walker has not been seriously damaged at all, at least in the polls, from these multiple allegations that he has paid for abortions while running on a pro-life campaign. Now, that's striking to me, and it says to me that Republicans here are clearly not interested in the qualifications of their candidate. They're not interested in his moral stance. They're interested in the fact that he has an R behind his name, that he can go to the Senate and basically do what they put him there to do, which is to give the Republicans a Senate majority and help make some of these things permanent, like abortion, help push back against inflation. Ideology, really, in the Georgia race is a non-issue.
Joseph, briefly, if you can, there's a lot of other interesting races. Ohio's tight. Mike Lee in Utah kind of worried about holding his seat. You've got a newspaper in Iowa pointing out that Charles Grassley's political career is older than the Barbie doll and the Grammys. He's in a tight race as well with a former U.S. Navy admiral who was just 1 year old when Grassley began his political career. Is there one race that you're watching that you've got a lot of interest in?
Well, I think Nevada is quite fascinating. I think Ohio, all the ones that you ticked off are all the ones that I'm watching. But of the handful that you named that are really, are bearing close attention, Ohio, you got to watch out for Tim Ryan. J.D. Vance is surging. Ryan is flagging a little bit, is not getting any help from the National Party. If he wins that race, he's basically done it on his own muscle. And Grassley, could we be facing the end of an era? Only time will tell.
All right, Joseph, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for your insights.